He's built multi-million-dollar companies. His explosive books on health and wealth have sold over 60 million copies. Now, The Kevin Trudeau Show they don't want you to know.
When people listen to politicians, can we trust what they're saying is accurate, or are these politicians knowingly giving us false information? And do they know that documents have been altered, destroyed, changed, or are they? Do they know?
So let me tell you a little story. This again concerns this particular case, but I'm just using it as an example because this is the case that I've been assigned. Congressman Wellesley Hunt, certainly a well-known name, goes on the U.S. congressional floor in March of 2024 and
I actually have here a copy of the congressional record. So I have that document right here with the transcript of his speech.
So March 15th, 2024, Texas Representative Wellesley Hunt is saying that United Cement Group, which is the company that Uzbek owns, acquired Uzbekistan government stake in one of the country's largest cement factories in early 2022. And then Hunt goes on to claim that they were seeking monopolization under the guise of privatization to the benefit of Russia. So out of nowhere, a U.S. congressman, think about this, a U.S. congressman is talking about a medium-sized cement plant in Uzbekistan as somehow being a contributing enemy of the U.S. state, essentially, because we're fighting a proxy war in Ukraine. And so that this cement companies, medium, small-sized cement companies, certainly on a global scale, is somehow contributing to the war effort on behalf of Russia, and that the acquisition is somehow done on behalf of Russia. Now, I happen to know, and I believe you also have documents to show this, that the entire statement that Congressman Hunt made was fabricated based on information that he received from well-paid lobbyists. And that later those lobbyists were forced to issue an apology for presenting inaccurate information to a member of the U.S. government. Of course, that apology was never published. You have access to it, but it was never published. Certainly, Congressman Hunt never went back on the floor to say, you know what, I was misinformed, and he just relied on information that was bought and paid for, that was fabricated, that was provided to him by lobbyists who are bought and paid for. And again, this happens on a daily basis. If you think that the U.S. pharma industry, that the large defense contractors are not spending millions and billions of dollars to do the same thing on a daily basis, to misinform members of the government, members of Congress, and that, and certainly in some cases, to the members of Congress and members of Senate aren't direct investors in those same companies. And so they're not only defending the so-called truth and justice, but they're defending their own pocketbooks. And when they go and lie, when they go and make statements which they know not to be true, it's done on purpose. I'm not saying that in this case, Congressman Hunt knew that this statement he was making that destroyed the reputation of a company, the reputation of a man who was then disappeared, that he knew necessarily that this was false information. But when you go on the floor of the U.S. Congress, shouldn't you at least check your facts? Wouldn't that be the kind of thing that a U.S. citizen would expect when their lawmaker goes on the floor and makes a statement, that they would check the things that they're saying before they say them? So ask yourself, is this the kind of representation that we as U.S. citizens want?
I actually do have in my hands right here the actual documents, registration forms that show all the documentation. And so, I don't know if this is top secret or classified, but this is all the documentation showing how these lobbyists are registered, how they're getting paid, and they're getting paid from the Uzbek government and other foreign governments to influence U.S. politicians, correct?
That is correct. Congressman Hunt asked for the Office of Foreign Asset Control, which is the part of the U.S. government which is supposed to investigate and enforce sanctions against companies that are the worst offenders. They're supposed to investigate the terrorists, the war profiteers, the money launderers, the drug traffickers. And instead, Congressman Hunt goes on the floor of the U.S. Congress and asks them to investigate a cement company, a company that is involved in building office buildings, residential complexes in Central Asia, a company that was shown beyond a shadow of a doubt to have no involvement with any military operations anywhere in the world, a company that was shown not to have any connections with Russia, a company that has in fact made a commitment to help with hopefully the reconstruction effort in Ukraine after the war is over. So why is a congressman who has great power talking about and asking Janet Yellen to investigate a mid-sized cement company in Uzbekistan? If that does not appear ridiculous to you, then I don't know what is.
In Dubai, this, again, 30 military people with guns, with their laser finders, the red dots everywhere, bust into the villa, guns drawn, aiming the guns at you and Mark and the individual here, Shadmanov, throwing you on the ground. I listened to a recorded phone call with Mark where he was explaining that the gun was pushed at the back of his head, where the guy was Mark was spread eagle on the floor, face down. The gun was pushed to the back of his head, and that little red dot was moving as the hand was moving around, as you said, and he got very, very nervous. They take the guy and take him away. This must have been headline news all over Dubai, correct?
It got zero press.
Wait. It had to be the lead story on TV news. It had to be front page news on the newspapers. This is a major arrest, a major military operation, and you're saying it got zero media coverage?
Zero media coverage. Nothing happened.
International businessman. What about the Financial Times, London Times? Any newspapers in Europe cover it?
No newspapers in Europe, no newspapers in the United States, no TV channel, no internet coverage. Nothing happened. This did not happen. And again, Think about how many things never, like just like this, more serious than this, with people actually being killed and disappeared forever, never happened.
There was a book written years ago called The Green Man and the Golden Girl. And it was about a gentleman who made a lot of money in the United States. He was an older guy and he had a younger girlfriend, a blonde, the Golden Girl. And he was the green man because he had so much green money. And he went to a private island that he bought, and he had a little security force there, and he was just going to live his life in luxury. The United States government, for reasons described in the book, put together a secret military operation with helicopters. U.S. military went in, helicopters, guns blazing, killing it was something like in a James Bond movie where they took over the island where Dr. No was. I mean, they just went in there, shot the whole place up, brought him back, and it got zero media coverage. It, quote, never happened. This goes on in America. It goes on in England. It goes on all over the world, correct? I mean, you've been around this for many, many years. You're an insider. You know. So this is not new.
This is not new. This happens on a daily basis. The United Arab Emirates is not a so-called third world country. It is a member of every international organization you can think about, from the United Nations to the Interpol to International Criminal Court. It is supposed to be a first world country. It's not the kind of place where you would expect for things like this to happen. It is not the kind of country where people who get the golden visa expect to be treated like this and disappeared. But the bigger point is that we use this as an example just because it's a recent one that I am intimately involved with, but it is certainly not an isolated incident. And if you think things like this cannot happen in England, in the United States, in France, anywhere in the world, then I suggest you open up your eyes. I suggest you start looking and digging under the surface. I suggest you start listening to people like Kevin who are after the truth, who are not after the glossy feel-good story, who know on their own, based on their own life and experience, what a government with unlimited power, unchecked power, can do to you if they feel like it. Certainly, Kevin, knowing your story, you weren't treated any better. You were not, okay.
Yeah, well, as you know the story better than anyone. I mean, we've been friends for a long time, so you know. But when I told people, and I really didn't want to say it because people wouldn't believe it, and people would say, every major lawyer, whether it's every major lawyer on television, every legal scholar, when they looked at my case, they said, this is a kangaroo court. The rulings coming down from the judge are 100% wrong, and they're being upheld by the appeals court. How is this possible? This is mind-boggling. And the answer, which we've been talking about, is when these judges get phone calls from the big politicians in Washington, D.C., it doesn't matter what the law says. It just matters what they decide to say. Correct?
You are an unwanted element. You are a virus in the system, according to them. According to people like us who want to know the truth, you are the person telling the truth. You are someone who is committed to bringing a sense of unplugging people out of the matrix. That's what you do. And that is not what the matrix wants you to do. And that is why you lost. You didn't lose, but because you've always been a fighter, and in your soul that the cause you are fighting for is a just one. But certainly, as a person, as a writer, as a person who has exposed this kind of behavior for your entire career, you are an unwanted element. They couldn't disappear you, at least in a physical sense, but they disappeared you inside of a prison. They tried to silence you. They tried to throw every possible trick in the book at you. You persisted, of course, because that's the kind of person you are, and we would not expect anything less of you. But many weaker men would have disappeared.
Hi, I'm Kevin Trudeau. This is everything they don't want you to know about to improve the quality of your life. Broadcasting every Monday and Wednesday, 2 days a week now. Monday and Wednesday at 1 o'clock Chicago time. Make sure you tune in and subscribe to the channel and share these shows with everyone you know.